Yeah, I think the FTR scares people off a little bit and they delay it until they have more reason and justification to do it. But I think our point is the sooner you start that process, the simpler it can be. And it's really the keystone for unlocking the rest of the AWS partnership. You really can't do much of anything without an approved FTR or well architected framework. So that would be the context around sort of helping software companies prioritize what's important to do early on in their journey.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean there's some it's a lot of foundational security checks that should be in place from the beginning regardless. So a lot of it has to do with your environment not being open to the general public, securing it, privatizing it, making sure that your attack surface is very small, so that people are constantly out there on the internet. Obviously, scanning for open ports, scanning for database ports, scanning for management ports, anything that they feel like they can break into. So I think making the environment private and making sure that you've battened down the hatches, so to speak, and locked down the different pieces is very important.
So even if, well, I was just going to double click on that and say that even if you're not, going to launch a huge partnership with AWS, it's sort of security best practices
Absolutely.
to implement the checks that they're suggesting. So it's a foundational piece of being an AWS customer too, in addition to being a partner. Printing it out and binding it.
I actually printed out. I mean, this is a funny thing to mention too, but I actually printed out the entire FTR guidebook and went and did it at the FedEx place and put it in a giant binder and went through and highlighted different aspects of it. So it was old school. It felt like I was back in college, but I think you have to have that sort of intensity and dedication to do it appropriately. I didn't feel like any piece of it was necessarily rocket science where it was really super difficult. We did move from a staging environment to a production environment, which was more secure and locked down, and it took us a few days to do that. But in general, I think that most of the checks are things that can be implemented without affecting your environment too heavily, because like I mentioned before, a lot of it is initializing logging for security, making sure that users have things like passwords a certain length, or also encryption key rotation, basic kind of things that people should be doing anyway. So I think that if people are afraid of it when they go and they do the checks, not to be alarmed if you have a lower number at first, because you'll get there. It's just a matter of ticking the boxes and moving from the critical and down the list and knocking them out.
Yeah, I think what we'd like to do is start a kind of technical blog series on sort of the build, the co-build, because that's the first part of the partnerships journey that people sometimes skip over and just kind of run right directly to co-sell. And if the co-build piece of it is not as firm and we haven't necessarily done that part, it's harder to get to co-sell at scale. And so I think Will sort of coming on as the AWS and Partner Engineering VP, creating a series of content around foundational technical review, technology integrations, AWS services that people might want to look at integrating with, right? We'll kind of begin to promote him as an expert in the technical aspect of an AWS partnership.
Yeah. And it's an ongoing thing. There are just different levels to it. So right now we're just getting past that FTR, and there's a report I have to fill out. There's a giant spreadsheet that they want documentation, and then even down to a architectural diagram of our environment, these other things which we can produce fairly quickly. But really, it's just that initial hurdle, and I think that does, to Jessica's point, probably scare some people off of like, I just don't want to be involved in doing that. But it's really not as bad as it seems.